What if one sentence could change the way you see the world? What if a small moment, a quiet gesture, or a stranger's story stayed with you forever? This episode is not a lesson in grammar. It's a lesson in life. In this journey, you won't just improve your English, you'll improve the way you think, feel, and speak about the world around you. You'll hear real, emotional, human stories, each one written to touch your heart, open your mind, and show you how powerful simple English can be when it carries truth. These are not just stories to understand, they are stories to remember, stories that helped me see failure differently, see silence differently, see people differently, and most of all, see myself differently. So if you've been learning English and feeling stuck, if you've been trying to grow but feeling tired, if you've ever wondered if your voice matters, this episode is for you. Let's begin. I was walking through the city one quiet morning when I noticed something strange. An old man was sitting alone on a bench near a bakery. His clothes were worn, his shoes were torn, and his head was bent low. At first, I thought he was just resting. But then I saw it in his hands. He held a piece of bread, hard and dry. He was eating it slowly like it was something precious. People passed by. No one looked. No one stopped. The world was in a rush. I crossed the street and bought a fresh sandwich and a cup of hot tea. I walked over and gently handed it to him. He looked up, surprised. His eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," he said, with a voice that was soft but full of life. You have no idea what this means. We didn't speak much after that, just a few quiet words. But I walked away with something I didn't expect. That old man had nothing. But when he said thank you, I felt something powerful, like I had just touched a deeper truth. It made me think about how easy it is to forget the people who are invisible, the ones who are quiet, the ones who suffer alone. That morning changed me. It taught me that kindness doesn't need permission. You don't need to be rich or important to help someone. You just need to notice. You just need to care. From that day, I started seeing people differently. A tired mother in the market holding her baby while counting coins. A boy helping his grandmother walk slowly through traffic. A teacher carrying books long after school was over. I began to realize something. Simple and powerful, everyone is carrying something heavy. Some carry it in silence. Some hide it with a smile. But all of us are walking through life hoping that someone, just one person, will see us, and not just walk by. So now I try to be that person. I try to see, not because I want to feel good, but because seeing someone, truly seeing them, might be the moment they remember that they matter. That's how one morning, one act, one story changed the way I move through the world. He was the quietest boy in the class. He never raised his hand, never joined the games. He sat in the last row, always with the same sweater, always looking out the window like his thoughts were somewhere far away. Most of us didn't notice him. Teachers barely called his name. He was just there. Until the day we had a surprise assignment. The teacher asked us to write a story. Just one page. Any topic. Any style. I remember how excited everyone was. We talked loudly, we laughed, we showed each other our ideas, but he sat in silence, just stared at his paper. 2 days later, The teacher came in holding a single sheet of paper and said, "I want to read something to you." It was his story. The class grew quiet. At first, no one understood why. But as she read, we began to listen deeply. His story was about a small bird with a broken wing that dreamed of flying. Everyone told it to stop trying, that it would never leave the ground. But every morning, the bird climbed a little higher. Not to prove them wrong, but to remind itself it was still alive. By the time the teacher finished, the room was silent. Then, something happened. We all turned to him. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. But there was something in his eyes that looked like freedom. That story changed me. It made me realize we don't really know people. We see their surface. We judge by noise, by charm, by how loud someone laughs. But sometimes, the strongest stories come from the quietest hearts. After that day, I started listening more. I asked questions. I stopped assuming. Because you never know who's holding a story that could open your heart. And sometimes, the person you ignore the most is the one who can teach you the most. I once met a man who had lost everything. His shop burned down. His savings were gone. His family had moved away. He was living in a small rented room behind a bus station. But he smiled more than anyone I knew. We met by accident. I was waiting for a late bus, and he offered me a seat beside him. We started talking. I asked about his life. He told me the truth, but without bitterness. No anger, no complaints. I asked him how he could smile like that after losing so much. He paused for a moment, then looked up at the night sky and said, "I lost what I had, but not who I am." That sentence hit me like a wave. He went on, "Life can take your things, your job, your comfort, even your home. But if you still have your heart, your hope, your honesty, then you haven't lost everything." That was the moment I understood a lesson I had never heard in school. You can lose money and still be rich. You can live alone and still be surrounded. By meaning, you can carry pain and still carry peace. It's not what we own that gives us power. It's what we choose to hold on to when life falls apart. That man had no house, no business, no guarantees. But he had something rare: self-respect, courage, and a peaceful mind. He didn't wait for a perfect life to be happy. He chose happiness even in the middle of the mess. I still think of him when things go wrong. He reminds me I'm allowed to smile even when it hurts. I'm allowed to start again, even when I feel tired. And I'm allowed to protect the parts of myself that no one can take. My kindness, my voice, my light. That one conversation on a quiet night changed how I define success. Now, when people ask me what I want to become, I answer simply, I want to become someone who can smile, even when there's nothing left to smile about. There was a girl who loved dancing, but she had no shoes. She lived in a village where the ground was mostly dirt and stones. Every day after school, she would stand under the same tree, close her eyes, and move to music only she could hear. She didn't have a speaker. She didn't have an audience. She didn't even have proper clothes. But when she danced, the whole world disappeared. One day, a visitor came to the village. A woman with a camera, a notebook, and tired eyes. She had been traveling for weeks, looking for stories, real stories, not headlines, not drama, just truth. She saw the girl dancing and stood there silently, watching. After a while, the woman asked, "Why do you dance here, alone every day?" The girl stopped and smiled. "Because it makes me feel like I'm flying, and when I feel like I'm flying, I forget that I'm barefoot." That answer broke something open in the woman's heart. She sat down and talked with the girl for a long time. No microphones, no pictures, just listening. Later, the woman wrote a short article, not about poverty, not about sadness, but about joy. A joy that doesn't depend on conditions. A joy that rises from the inside. The article reached thousands of people, but the girl never knew. She kept dancing under that same tree, still barefoot, still smiling. That story lives in me because it taught me something I'll never forget. You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect to feel alive. You don't need the best tools to start. You don't need applause to keep going. Sometimes what you have is enough, if your heart is full. The world tells us we need more. Likes, more stuff, more attention. But sometimes the deepest happiness is quiet. It doesn't post. It doesn't ask. It just is. So now, whenever I feel like I don't have enough to begin, I remember that barefoot girl under the tree. And I tell myself, start anyway, dance anyway, live anyway. He used to sweep the schoolyard every morning before the sun rose. He was already there, sweeping leaves, picking up wrappers, wiping dust from benches. No one paid him much attention. Most students didn't even know his name. But one day, something happened. A storm hit the city overnight. Trees were down. The road was covered in mud. The school was a mess. Classes were delayed, and teachers stood around waiting for someone to come fix things. That morning, the sweeper arrived early, as always. Alone, he started clearing the path with nothing but a broom and a wheelbarrow. It took him hours. He didn't stop. He didn't complain. He didn't ask for help. He just worked, quietly, patiently, steadily. By the time students arrived, the yard was clean again. Almost no one noticed what had been done, but the principal did. That afternoon, the school called everyone to the assembly hall. They gave the sweeper a microphone and asked him to say a few words. He stood in front of hundreds of students and teachers, holding his hat in one hand. He said just one sentence. Respect your work, even if no one sees it. One day, it will speak for you. Then he stepped down. The applause didn't stop for a long time. That moment stayed with me, not just because of his words, but because of his silence. He didn't do the work for recognition. He did it because it mattered to him, and that changed the way I see effort. Sometimes we think value only comes when people see us, when we're thanked, when we're noticed. But the truth is, your effort has value even when it's invisible. What you build in silence can still change the world. What you clean, what you care for, what you fix, even if it goes unnoticed, is part of the light you bring. Now, whenever I feel unappreciated or unseen, I remember the man with the broom, and I remind myself, you don't have to be famous to be powerful. You just have to show up and keep sweeping. She was the top student in every subject, always. Prepared, always sharp, Her notes were perfect, her grades untouched. Everyone thought she had it all together. Until one day she didn't show up for the exam. We waited. Teachers called her name. Her seat stayed empty. The next day she returned to school quietly, head down. The teacher asked her to explain. She stood at the front of the class and looked at all of us. Then, in a soft, shaking voice, she said something none of us expected. I had a panic attack. I studied too hard. I slept too little and I forgot to breathe. I didn't fail the exam. I failed to take care of myself. The room went silent. That moment changed everything I believed about success, because we're taught to chase results, win the prize, get the highest score, be number one. But no one teaches us how to rest, how to say no, how to protect our peace before it breaks. Her honesty cracked something open in all of us. Even the teacher was quiet. Then she said, "Thank you for reminding us that strength is not always about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about knowing when to pause." Since that day, I've looked at pressure differently. Success is not just about showing up for the world. It's also about showing up for yourself. It's about listening to your body, respecting your limits, letting yourself recover. You don't have to destroy yourself to achieve something beautiful. Your mind matters. Your heart matters. Your breath matters. So now when life gets loud, I remind myself of that brave girl, and I give myself permission to stop, to breathe, to rest, because taking care of yourself is not weakness, it's wisdom. He was an artist, but no one knew. He worked as a security guard in a busy shopping mall, standing still for hours watching crowds pass, greeting people with a polite nod. Day after day, same uniform, same routine. But every lunch break, he disappeared to the back corner of the building. One afternoon, I followed out of curiosity. He sat on a wooden crate with a sketchbook on his lap, just drawing. Not for money, not for fame, just for himself. I watched quietly as he finished a sketch of a little girl holding her mother's hand. It looked so real. It felt alive. I asked him why he never shared his work. He smiled and said, "Because it feeds me. I draw so I don't forget who I am." That moment taught me something I never read in books. You don't have to make your passion public for it to be real. You don't have to prove your gifts for them to matter. Sometimes the most beautiful parts of who we are live in quiet spaces, kept alive not by applause but by love. He taught me that art doesn't need an audience. Purpose doesn't need permission. And the soul doesn't need to be seen by many to stay alive. Since then, I've carried that truth with me. I write, even if no one reads. I think, even if no one listens. I feel, even if no one understands. Because some things we do are not meant to impress others. They're meant to keep our spirit from drying out. And now, when I feel unseen or unimportant, I remember that man and his sketchbook, and I whisper to myself, keep creating, not for them, for you. She failed the same exam 3 times. Each time she studied harder. Each time she walked in with hope. Each time she walked out with tears. Her friends moved on. Her classmates got jobs. Some people whispered that maybe she just wasn't smart enough, but she kept going. I asked her why. She looked me in the eye and said, because I believe I'm more than my score. Her words stayed with me. We live in a world that praises quick results. First try, first place, instant success. But no one talks about the ones who fall, stand up, and try again in silence. She didn't pass because she was lucky. She passed because she refused to quit. And when she finally held that certificate in her hand, it wasn't just paper. It was proof. Proof that failure is not the opposite of success. It's the path to it. She taught me that strength doesn't always look like confidence. Sometimes it looks like showing up again when your heart is heavy, when your hands are shaking, when you feel like giving up. Now, whenever I fail at something, I think of her, and I remind myself, failing doesn't mean I'm finished. It means I'm learning. It means I'm alive. It means I'm getting closer. So I wipe my tears. I reset my heart, and I try again. There was a boy who stuttered when he spoke. Words came out slowly, sometimes painfully. Other kids laughed. Some teachers skipped him when reading aloud. He learned to hide behind silence. But one day, something changed. The school announced a storytelling contest. Everyone expected the usual names to sign up. But then, the boy raised his hand. At first, no one believed it. He stood on stage, hands shaking, eyes low. The room was silent. Then he began. It was slow. Yes. Each word took effort. But his story had weight. It had heart. And no one dared interrupt. He told a story about a turtle who wanted to race birds. Everyone laughed at the turtle. But the turtle said, "I may not be fast, but every step I take is mine." By the end, the entire room was standing, not because he spoke perfectly, but because he spoke bravely. That day, I realized something powerful. Your voice doesn't have to be flawless to be heard. It doesn't need to be loud to matter. Sometimes, the quietest voice holds the strongest truth. That boy reminded me that courage isn't about being smooth or polished or perfect. It's about standing up, even when your knees shake. It's about speaking up, even when your voice cracks. And it's about owning your story, even if others try to skip past you. Now, whenever I doubt myself, whenever I feel small or afraid, to speak I remember that boy, and I whisper, "Speak anyway." She was late every day. Not by much, just 10, maybe 15 minutes. But it happened so often that people began to talk. "She's lazy," someone said. "She doesn't care," another whispered. But no one asked her why. One day I did. I caught up with her after class and gently asked, "Is everything okay?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I live far," she said. "I have to walk my little brother to school before I come here. He's scared to go alone. Our parents leave early for work." She wasn't lazy. She was responsible. She wasn't careless. She was choosing love over speed. That moment made me realize how easy it is to misjudge someone when you don't know their story. We often make conclusions in seconds. We forget that behind every face is a life we haven't lived, and pain we haven't felt. After that day, I stopped asking, "What's wrong with them?" and started asking, "What might they be carrying?" Kindness is not just in big actions. It's in quiet understanding. It's in choosing patience before punishment. It's in choosing curiosity over criticism. So now when someone seems late, distracted, quiet, or distant, I try not to rush to judgment, because maybe they're holding more than I can see. And maybe what they need most is not correction, but compassion. He sold fruit on the sidewalk, a small cart, a few baskets, nothing fancy. Every morning he arranged the oranges and bananas carefully, as if he were setting up something sacred. And every evening he packed them away with the same care. Most people walked by without stopping, but one day I stood nearby waiting for a friend and watched him closely. He greeted every customer with a smile. If someone was short on money, he still gave them fruit. If a child passed by, he offered them a slice for free. Someone once asked him, "Why are you so generous when you have so little?" He laughed gently and replied, "Because I don't count what I give. I count the joy it brings." That answer softened something in me. In a world where we're taught to measure everything, money, time, effort, he measured something else, joy. That changed how I saw giving. Giving isn't always about what you have. It's about what you share. Sometimes, the richest people aren't the ones with full wallets. They're the ones with full hearts. And sometimes, the most powerful act of generosity is not a big donation. It's a small kindness, offered with love. Now, whenever I feel like I don't have enough to make a difference, I think of the man with the fruit cart, and I remember, even the smallest gift can carry great meaning, so I give. Not because I have everything, but because I know how it feels to receive something, just when you need it most. He worked at the repair shop across the street. Most people came to him only when something broke, a phone, a fan, a clock. No one ever came just to talk, but he didn't mind. He worked quietly, hands steady, eyes focused. He rarely spoke unless someone spoke first. One afternoon, I brought in an old watch that had stopped working. It wasn't expensive, but it meant a lot to me. A gift from someone I had lost. He looked at it for a long time, then said, "The watch isn't broken, just tired. It needs time, not fixing." Then he opened the back, adjusted one small piece, and gently wound it. The ticking returned. I asked how he knew what was wrong. He said, "Machines are like people. Sometimes they don't need new parts. They just need someone to take the time to understand them." I stood there, holding the watch, speechless. That moment taught me something powerful. We often try to fix ourselves too quickly. We rush to replace what's worn. We think something's wrong with us just because we feel slow, unmotivated, or lost. But maybe we're not broken. Maybe we're just tired. Maybe we don't need to be replaced. We just need someone, or even ourselves, to slow down, listen, and gently turn us back to life. Now I give myself more grace. I take time to rest. I try to be gentle with others too, because not everything needs fixing. Some things just need care. What you can learn from this story. English, we often hear phrases like, "Something's off," when something doesn't feel right. Give it time. A reminder that patience can be powerful. Fixing isn't always the answer, meaning that presence and understanding are often more important than quick solutions. Next time you feel pressure to be perfect or fast, remember, language and life both need space. So take your time, speak slowly, think gently, And when others are quiet, don't assume they're broken. Sometimes they're just finding their rhythm again. She wrote letters to herself. Every Sunday evening, she sat by the window, opened her notebook, and began with the same line. Dear me. She wrote about her fears, her hopes, the things she couldn't say out loud. Sometimes the letters were angry. Sometimes they were full of tears. But she always ended them with love. One day, I asked her why she wrote them. She looked up and said, "Because no one ever told me the things I needed to hear, so I decided to say them to myself." That answer stayed with me. So many of us wait for someone else to understand us, to notice us, to say we matter. But sometimes, the voice we need most is our own. She taught me that self-love doesn't have to be loud. It can be quiet. It can be written on paper, sealed with honesty, and left in a drawer for no one else to read. Since then, I've started doing the same. I write to myself when I'm lost, when I'm scared, when I feel like I've failed. And I remind myself, you've come far. You're still learning. You're allowed to begin again, because no matter what the world says, your inner voice is the one that builds or breaks you. So make it kind, make it honest, make it yours. What you can learn from this story in English, letter writing is a beautiful way to practice both language and self-reflection. Start your own letters with simple expressions like, "Dear me." To begin a personal message, "I'm proud of you for." To build self-confidence, it's okay to feel, to show understanding and compassion. You don't need perfect grammar to be gentle with yourself. You just need honesty. So, write, reflect, and use your words, not just to communicate with others, but to connect with yourself. He failed his first job interview, not because he was unqualified, not because he didn't prepare, but because he got nervous. He forgot the answer to a simple question. His hands shook. His voice cracked. The interviewer smiled politely, but he knew it was over. He walked out of the building feeling like the smallest person in the world. But instead of throwing away the experience, he wrote everything down. Every question they asked. Every mistake he made. Every sentence he couldn't finish. Then he practiced. He didn't hide from the embarrassment. He used it. 2 months later, he walked into another interview, stronger, calmer, clearer. He got the job, not because he was perfect, but because he had grown. That moment taught me something I'll never forget. Failure is not the end of your story. It's the start of your training. We don't get better by avoiding mistakes. We get better by facing them, by learning from them, by respecting them as part of the process. Since then, I've stopped being ashamed of getting things wrong, especially when speaking English. Because every wrong answer is a step toward fluency. Every awkward moment is a lesson in progress. And every time I stumble, I get one step closer to standing tall. What you can learn from this story job interviews are a great way to practice real-life English speaking. Here are some phrases you can use. I'm excited about this opportunity because one challenge I faced was, and here's how I handled it. I'm always learning, and I believe this position will help me grow. And when you don't know the answer, it's okay to say, "That's a great question. Let me take a moment to think." You don't need perfect English. You need honest, effort. So prepare, practice, and when you fall, don't stop. Grow. He wore the same shoes every day. They were old. The soles were thin. The laces were different colors. One red, one blue. Some kids made fun of him. They whispered, pointed, and laughed behind his back. But he never reacted. He just walked past them, head up, shoulders calm. One day after school, I saw him sitting alone under a tree. I walked over and sat beside him. I didn't ask about the shoes, I just said hello. He smiled and said, "These shoes walked me through a lot. I don't mind if they look different. I care that they still carry me." I looked down at my own new sneakers. For the first time, they didn't feel that important. He taught me something I didn't expect to learn that day. Dignity isn't about what you wear. It's about how you walk. It's not about looking perfect. It's about standing strong in what you have. He showed me that confidence doesn't come from the outside. It comes from your story, your struggle, your quiet strength. Since that day, I stopped judging so quickly, and I started looking deeper, because what someone wears might look broken, but the spirit inside them might be unshakable. What you can learn from this story. In English, we often describe people's character using powerful phrases like, "He carries himself with dignity," "She walks with quiet strength." His shoes may be worn, but his spirit is not. When you're learning English, don't just focus on grammar. Focus on how language expresses character. Try practicing this. Describe someone not by how they look, but by how they carry themselves. Example: She doesn't speak loudly, but when she enters the room, people listen. He may not have much, but he walks like someone who knows his worth. That's the beauty of English. It lets you see people clearly. So keep listening, keep noticing, and use your words to honor not just appearances, but stories. She never said no. If someone asked for help, she helped. If someone needed extra time, she stayed late. If someone raised their voice, she stayed calm. At first, people called her kind, patient, generous. But over time, something changed. She grew tired, quiet. Her smile became smaller. Her energy dimmer. One day I asked her, "Are you okay?" She hesitated, then said softly, "I think I gave so much away. I forgot to save some for myself." That answer hit me hard. Because we're often told to be helpful, to be polite, to say yes. But no one teaches us the importance of healthy limits. She taught me that saying no doesn't mean you're selfish. It means you're wise. It means you respect your time, your heart, your energy. And it means you understand this simple truth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Since that day, I've learned to pause before saying yes, to ask myself, do I have the space for this? Because real kindness isn't about saying yes to everyone. It's about saying yes to the things that allow you to stay whole. What you can learn from this story, learning English, is not just about vocabulary, it's also about expressing boundaries and self-respect. Here are a few gentle ways to say no in English. I'd love to help, but I'm not available right now. I'm sorry, but I need to focus on something else at the moment. Thank you for asking, but I have to pass this time. Practice these sentences until they feel natural. Because language isn't just about connection. It's about protection, too. Speak clearly. Speak kindly. And don't forget, you deserve peace, too. So many of us think in numbers. How fast we learn. How many mistakes we've made. How long it takes to speak fluently. But what truly changes us are stories, not facts, not pressure. Stories. Because stories don't rush you. They guide you. They remind you that you are not alone, that your voice matters, even if it trembles, that your pace is still progress, even if it's slow, and that your heart can grow stronger, not by being perfect, but by being honest. If even one of these stories stayed with you today, then you're already changing the way you see the world and yourself. That's how learning happens. Not only through lessons, but through feelings, through reflection, through real life. So keep listening, keep learning, and never stop believing that your own story, your quiet, imperfect, powerful story, can change someone else's life too, even if that someone is you.